Do you want to do this Aaron Rodgers thing? Because this is your former. This is. Let me just say this, Emma, as a way of setting you up. You know, and anybody who grew up in the Northeast knows this. You want to be sitting in your glass chalet and watch the snow fall during Christmas, and it's like you fall in love with that feeling.
Yeah.
But then if someone comes by and says, this is all fabricated, it's heartbreaking. I don't know why I want to say that before you talk about Aaron Rodgers, but go ahead.
Well, he was at one point my favorite player in the sport. I was a big defender, big fan.
Let's just contextualize this. The favorite player in your favorite sport, and sports are like your favorite thing.
Yeah.
So really, like,
I was a big fan, and I thought he was actually
I think 3 or 4 bigs might describe it a little bit better.
Matt made fun of me earlier today and said I was describing him like I would an angel falling from heaven.
So you said fall from grace.
I did. He had a fall from grace in my eyes. I just thought he was like, and he supported Black Lives Matter. I was like, oh, this is great. Like, this guy, he's not afraid to speak out against, like, in this NFL world, like what he really thinks.
And he stays in the pocket for like 4 seconds per.
Well, he didn't stay in the pocket. He was very mobile and athletic. That was also what was exciting about him at the time. Anyway, turns out he's a huge douchebag. Huge douchebag. And it's painful for me to even like acknowledge it, but I have to because I'm intellectually honest.
Now, what is this show?
Oh, my God. It's Pat McAfee's show. So he goes on here every week and speaks about his feelings because he thinks he's the most interesting guy on the planet. And because of this compulsion, he may have also slandered Jimmy Kimmel.
Yeah, so a little bit more context is Aaron and Jimmy Kimmel have gone back and forth a few times. Jimmy Kimmel, with regards to like the COVID vaccine stuff, because that's another thing is like, McAfee, and I don't really know much about him, but like, why you have? I guess because he was a good player, but like Aaron Rodgers is a moron.
No, I mean Mac
repeatedly puts his foot in his mouth like this and is a liability for that show. So I would maybe stop.
It's not a liability. I mean, not to like McAfee was a Barstool host, and then and then FanDuel picked him up. And he got a multi-million-dollar ESPN deal because of like these weekly, basically, Aaron Rodgers appearances where he would break news specifically about Rodgers. And that guy on the right there is one of Aaron Rodgers' old friends from the Packers. So like whenever Aaron needs a safe space to speak about how he thinks without getting any pushback, he goes to this program.
Bring it up, Foxy or somebody back there.
Seats on it.
Bring up Super Bowl 58.
You'll see it.
The emblem, put it on the screen. And then bring up 57 and 56.
This has something to do with the Epstein list that came out?
Feels like.
That's supposed to be coming out soon.
Look, this guy's been waiting in his wine cellar. Yeah. I've been waiting in my wine cellar for this thing.
There's a lot of people, including Jimmy Kimmel, are really hoping that doesn't.
All right.
There you go. Oh, we're about to get sued.
Look at that smug little smile.
Oh, we're about to get sued.
Yeah, and Jimmy Kimmel said, I've never met him. I'm not on those logs, and maybe prepare for a lawsuit. McAfee is today saying, look, we're just joshing around.
Of course.
What happens when you joke and you occasionally make some really. I mean, that's what the thing about this is like, and how the right wing particularly engages with the Epstein flight log thing is it shows a pretty. I think psychopathic level of unseriousness because this is really serious things we're dealing with, and to just cavalierly make an accusation like that about Jimmy Kimmel is just disgusting.
That really is the point, is that like, there is such a nexus between the COVID denialism and the anti-vaxxer stuff and the sort of Pizzagate pedophile rings, where it is really more of like a totem than it is about trying to, root out like corruption. And, this is a story of corruption, and there could be a story of like, of blackmail associated with it. And I don't think that every single person who is, going to end up being on these lists are necessarily, corrupt or were being blackmailed by Epstein, or who knows for what purposes. and by whom. I think some people are there to give him credibility, to make other people feel comfortable that he wants to put into a compromising position. Never mind the victimization of these women and girls. I mean, it is serious stuff, and it is like sort of dragged into their sort of like creepy ass worldviews that are really more about sort of self-stroking themselves.
Yeah. Oh no, Rogers is good at that. I mean, and you see like how that conspiracy hole begins. I don't know when he started going down this conspiracy rabbit hole. He came from what I again initially liked about him was he had a very fundamentalist or evangelical like Christian background family where he had cut himself off from his family when he got into the NFL because of some of those differences in religiosity. But you can see how like it's still completely the same frame of mind that he applies to like the magical thinking associated with anti-vax stuff and how all of this is, and a lot of the conspiracy theories that he espouses. So like, yeah, I mean, he's just an athlete or whatever, and he's a complete faux intellectual who thinks he's smarter than everybody else. But whether it's, him or Kyrie Irving or whoever, guys who have made a lot of money and then kind of hermetically seal themselves off from any kind of other criticism, they do influence people. And yeah, the Epstein stuff, when the left approaches it, is about like, let's talk about influence and how we can get big money out of and blackmail and those kinds of folks out of power. And for those kinds of guys, it's just like, no one is as pure as us
against political rivals. It's not like, oh, look at both like multiple presidents from both parties, Trump and Clinton, and also the royal family. Like there are serious things implicated here. Maybe scoring a point off of Jimmy Kimmel because you're mad that he made fun of your dumb shit anti-vax stuff. Like be a little bit more serious around the things you're using as a vehicle for attention seeking.
And the thing is that obviously people are you're in a situation where you're joking around, but there's a reason why the guys on that show reacted that way. Yeah. Like the closest people to him in the world reacted that way. Mm-hmm. Because it's not just a joke. It was his way of trying to attack Kimmel.
Yeah, I mean, he goes on the show. That's when he called Travis Kelce Mr. Pfizer. He goes on there to be an attack dog. It's so insecure and bizarre. And just last point on this.
He's mid. He's like, that's the thing about him is like he was an all-time great quarterback and he's a midwit. He isn't actually clever. And that's going to drive him crazy as people forget about who he was on the football field.
Oh, totally. I mean, that's part of why he's doing this. He played 4 snaps and then he was out for the year. And just last point on this. Good example of like, psychedelics don't necessarily make you a liberal. He loves shrooms, ayahuasca, weed. He talks about it all the time. Actually, for someone like him, and I'm also reminded of the Sopranos episode where Tony takes what is it? Some psychedelic to get over after he did something horrible. Like sometimes it just makes people who are narcissistic more obsessed with their own thoughts. So like the theory of
it is not good for not good for folks who are narcissistic. So for Rogers, it's made him more obsessed with himself. And like we can disprove that theory that psychedelics make you in some way more open or left wing. For people like this, it actually just makes them more convinced of their own bullshit.